Hello, Miss Dodge. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. It's been a while since
Yeah,
we saw
it's
each
been a little
other.
bit.
Everything is like pre-hurricane and then after hurricane. Of course, you were gracious enough to let me come in the day that we were expected to be out for 3 days. So I really do appreciate that. I know it's been a while, but you actually told me that you just assessed on that current unit that on multiplication and related division facts. So obviously it was a pleasure to come in and work that day, and hopefully you've been able to take a look at the data and see how your lesson translated to student data in the end. I would love to just go through our question, and then of course I'll talk about some of the data that I observed when I was in your classroom. So our question, just as a reminder, is how can we deepen students' conceptual understanding through the use of manipulatives or representations when exploring math concepts? This is obviously important throughout third grade, but on the particular benchmark that I got to observe you teach, this is even more important when students utilize the tools and you can actually gauge, did the students understand based on using tools or even drawing pictures? So just a few things, when I was in your classroom, I jotted down on this data chart that you see on the computer, 3 different categories. We have students that use concrete tools to explore multiplication and division, students who chose to explore through representations as well, and then students who did not use concrete tools or representations and chose to find related facts based on just abstract information. So as you see, 9 students here chose to use the tools. Now I want to point out, you did provide the tools for everybody, so that was wonderful. 9 students chose to use them, 4 students chose to just draw pictures, and then 3 students solved just using related facts in kind of an abstract way. So like I said, you did provide those counters, and 9 of those students, I'm interested to look at the data in a moment because you provided an exit ticket. 9 of those students fell within this correct range of solving 24 divided by 3, and then there were 3 students who did not solve 24 divided by 3 correctly, and then 2 were unknown. So of your 16 students, many of your students wanted to use the tools that you provided, and then 11 of those did score correctly on that particular exit slip. Again, I know it's been a while, it's been about a week or so. Can you talk to me about something that you observed when you were using manipulatives to hopefully deepen that conceptual understanding for students?
Absolutely. I think a lot of my students did love the hands-on part. Obviously 9 out of the 16 used them. I wasn't very surprised who used them and who wouldn't. I think it connected perfectly with who would use them. The 3 that did not use any tools at all would be the 3 that I would not assume. They are very abstract thinkers. They
okay,
seem to
so
jump
it's
ahead.
consistent.
So it was consistent, and then those who did use the tools, I felt like it was very, it was correct. Like I would say that those students would use this. I did think it helped a lot with some of my students, drawing it out. Sometimes they mess up counting, but when you have the counters and you can't really accidentally erase, or you can't accidentally draw 2 more. You physically have to move stuff in and count. So I think that the students that did use them, it did help them a lot with errors. So the students that have more errors with drawing, I think had less errors when using manipulatives.
Very good point. Actually, that kind of leads me into one of the questions that I was going to ask you to think about, because we always think about misconceptions before we teach and plan a lesson, but then we notice that there are students that have misconceptions on the spot. So what misconceptions about related facts did your students have that day, and really into the unit, because we're focusing on that building conceptual understanding?
I think the biggest misconception is they just learned multiplication, so commutative property, they thought they could switch. But with division, they learned that you couldn't switch, like if I have 3 pencils and 24 friends, they're not going to get a full pencil. And so, but if I have 24 friends, or like 24 pencils and 3 different friends, it does work out. They do get whole pencils, and then that was a big misconception that I actually didn't really plan, because they were like commutative property, and I'm like, oh, that only works for multiplication. So
I do remember on that day, actually, a student wrote 1 divided by 3 because we were working within that fact family, and you took the time to go to the the whiteboard and chalkboard.
Chalkboard.
Old school, yeah. I'm thinking 20 years ago when So you took the time to go to the whiteboard and really clear up that misconception about division and, of course, the related facts, because they are so used to that property with multiplication that they're naturally thinking it that way. But I do remember you clearing up that misconception and building that conceptual understanding. Any different approach that you would try, because the lesson and the benchmarks didn't end on that day, so thinking about the subsequent days beyond the day that I was here, was there a different approach that you tried? Still using, of course, the tools, but noticing some of the student misconceptions, and then on the next day, did you do anything differently?
Throughout the unit, we did progress in different strategies. So, I mean, we started with the manipulatives, but then we slowly went into different strategies. And towards the end, everybody almost was doing a different strategy. Like, I never have one table do the same strategy. So some really did love drawing. Some loved doing related facts because they know their multiplication facts. And some requested the manipulatives because they knew that helped, and they drew on their whiteboard 2 circles and they moved the manipulatives. So I didn't have any whole table doing one strategy. So I thought that was really cool because it was amazing that they could see that different brains work differently, but they all got a concise answer. So that was awesome.
And obviously the whole reason behind we explore and then we help them pick a strategy that works for them. You as their teacher can probably monitor and determine, like, this is a strategy that works for you. Always use your tools if you are going to understand the concept. And some students can relate that pictorial support to that as well. So let's, as we think, and actually before I go into what's coming next, did you, because you said you just assessed on Friday, so off the top of your head, do you have any concrete data that you could share with me about how your students did on the assessment?
Yeah, actually my one student, I contacted the parent because I was so proud. The student hasn't passed one math assessment, but this one they finally passed. Their only other scores were like 50s, and this one they got a 92. So that's amazing growth. And I just noticed that with manipulative, she really needs them. And so she came back very quickly, did her test, and I was like, I'm not even gonna look at your test because your paper's blank, and I know you. And so when she went back, she took way longer, and she was very upset with me. But I brought her over because you get the scores right away because it's on the computer. And I was like, do you notice when you use your scrap paper how much more it takes time, but how many of your answers are correct? So I think her really getting to experience that you're not the only one that uses manipulatives. Everyone uses it, and your strategies work. So that was really cool. I mean, she was the big one to me that just like proved like use the word,
that's
take
wonderful.
your time.
So she was able to use the tools necessary to be successful on the assessment, and then of course she drew pictures as well on
and
her
just
scrap
motivating
paper.
them through, because it is a lot. I mean, I get it. I remember doing long division. I mean, we don't do that, but I remember me doing long division being like, wow, this is a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
You get the right answer, so I'm like, work is it comes the right way. It's always going to end up in a good situation.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that she did really well on that assessment. I'm sure that made you proud, and of course her proud as well. So as we move forward, I would love to just come back and continue to observe students using math tools. So hopefully we can find a way to continue to get the students to use the tools and draw the pictures that they need to build that conceptual understanding through the different strategies, such as using arrays and repeated addition and so forth. Because in the next unit, when you start to explore area, students are going to have to rely on their multiplication facts to help them, and it's hopeful that they have those strategies such as number lines, arrays, like I mentioned, repeated addition, and then using the tools to support them, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I love it.
Wonderful. So thank you again for working with me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
You guys are doing a great job in here.
Thank
Keep
you
up the
so
good
much.
work.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.